Hey screen printers, this is Lainey with Ryonet, and today we're going to talk about streaking or banding on your films. We get a lot of phone calls from AccuRip users who experience this from time to time, and they're not really certain what's causing the issue. So today we're going to jump into the software and go over some of the possible causes of streaking or banding. Alright, so we're talking about streaking or banding on your film. Obviously it poses an issue. Any imperfection that you have on your film is going to transfer to your screen, and then that's going to transfer to your screen print. So streaking or banding on the film is where you see those horizontal lines that go all the way through the image on your film, where there are gaps of where the ink is being laid down. There's a few different causes behind that, and I'm going to walk through them all with you. But first, we're going to start on the website because I want to show you all, if you don't have your printer user manual handy, it's really important to have that on hand through this video, to have printed out next to your printer, at the workstation, documented somewhere. That way, if you're a larger shop, and especially, then if your printer guy happens to be out, if something does go wrong, you have that documentation there to do some troubleshooting. And every Epson manual does have a troubleshooting section that you can reference in case anything does pop up. So you just click on our screen print library. Again, it's right here on the main page, and all you have to do is search Epson manual. And we've got plenty of them listed out here. Now, if you don't see yours listed here, Epson.com has them. You could do a quick Google search of your Epson model, and the end user manual will pop right up. Now, so there are a lot of things that can cause streaking on a film. The most common one, if you're a newer user to AccuRip, is simply just not printing through the AccuRip to Epson printer driver. A quick way to just double check that, and this is always the first thing that I walk customers through, is going to file print in whatever program that you're using. So I'm going to go ahead and bring up Corel here. And just opening up a new document, I'm just going to draw a square to keep it pretty simple. If you go to File Print, again, this being in Illustrator, InDesign, whatever program that you have, if your Epson Artisan 1430 is the first thing that pops up, there's a good chance that you could have just overlooked that. Now, you might be absolutely certain that you had the AccuRip to Epson selected, or you might have it as the default printer there. If you went to File Print, that AccuRip to Epson printer might be the one that's selected. But that's always the first place to look, because if you don't have your AccuRip to Epson as your default printer, and every single time you go in and you print, you have to change it. If someone else happened to print films that day, or maybe it was early in the morning, you hadn't quite gotten your cup of coffee, you might have overlooked that. So that's always the first thing to just double check, that you did in fact choose your AccuRip to Epson printer option. The reason being is because the AccuRip to Epson and the Epson Driver handle ink actually a lot differently. I'm going to go to my devices and printers here and just show you real quick what the Epson Driver is set up for standard. So standard, it's set up for a text document. This is by default. This is how it downloaded onto this computer. Where best photo, because we are printing films, we want high quality, would ideally be what we'd have selected. And then the photo paper glossy or premium photo paper glossy, any one of these that calls out to printing onto a glossy surface such as our film would be the one to have selected. Furthermore, there are advanced settings in here via this tab, and high-speed printing is actually a selection. So printing through AccuRip to Epson, it goes at a much slower pace. Well, when you have a higher speed selected, that means the printer is making fewer passes per inch, and that's where you can start to see some of that banding actually occur. And a lot of the time, just the sheer speed of it can cause printing issues as well. So again, first step, just make sure that you're choosing the AccuRip to Epson printer option. If you want to make that your default printer, it's just a matter of going to your devices and printers. If you're on a PC, right-clicking, and you'll want to set it as your default printer. If you're on a Mac, if you're not certain how to do that, your user's manual will reference how to do it. If you have Windows 10, Windows 8, in order to find devices and printers, all you have to do is go to your list of apps, start typing in devices and printers, and you'll see a screen pull up just like this. So the second reason, if not one of the more common reasons for banding or streaking on the film, actually has to do with the ink cartridges. That could be low ink levels, it could be that the cartridges are starting to dry up, it could be that the ink levels are actually running, are completely empty, and the printer isn't telling you that they're out. And I'll go a little bit further into that third one here in a minute. But let's start with the ink levels and whether or not the ink cartridges could be drying out on you. Now, we more commonly hear that happening with the Epson Artisan 1430 or the 1400, just because that's the more common printer that we see in startup shops. So you're starting your screen printing business, you might not have been outsourcing when you got started, so you don't have as many jobs in the pipeline, you're not printing as often as maybe someone who has a 4900. So it's possible, you know, if you print one job and then you don't come back to your printer for another month or two, depending on your environment, your ink cartridges could potentially even start to dry up. So that would be the first thing. So if you have the Epson Artisan 1430, 1400, even the smaller models like the Workforce 1100, Artisan 50, take out those ink cartridges and, you know, on a paper towel, just tap them to see if there's any ink that's coming out. If there's not, or if there's very little, those puncture holes are typically really flowing with ink. That's a really good sign that either the ink inside the cartridges could be actually drying up on you. It's also a good way to check the ink levels manually. So if you've been printing for a couple of months and you come in and you're seeing the streaking or banding, that's a good physical way to actually check the ink cartridges to see if there's any ink in them. Now, you can check the ink cartridges in your Epson printer driver. So here on Windows 7, I'm under Devices and Printers, and then going to Printing Preferences. And this shows me my ink levels here. Now, it is important to, and I always recommend that customers actually take them out and shake them, because with our ink kits, we sell chip resetters. Even the Epson 4900 gets a chip resetter. And a lot of customers I talk to over the phone, they'll have someone in their shop that may have tried the chip resetter, trying to troubleshoot their ink quality issues by resetting the chip. Now, resetting the chip, all it does is it tells the cartridge, okay, I'm full again. That chip actually has an ink droplet counter. So each print that you do, the amount of ink that's pulled out, that counter goes down, and then when it runs out, it tells the printer. So if you're using that chip resetter after you begin printing, then by the time it gets down to 0, your cartridge is already going to be depleted and it's not going to be pulling anything through. So you can check your ink levels here under the printing preferences, but I really recommend that you actually take them out and shake them just to see if there's a good amount of ink coming out. We also have shops that will actually weigh them. That's a really great way. When you get a new set of ink tanks in or a new set of ink cartridges, weigh them, make sure that it's consistent. You know, document how much it actually weighs, and then you know every single time, you know, if something's starting to get low, you can weigh it again and see, you know, where it's at as far as weight goes. You can weigh it again when it's empty, so you can actually document what the full weight is and the empty weight is. That way you can, you know, measure your ink usage that way as well. So again, you can check your ink levels here. It's always a good idea to take them out and shake them just to verify, but again, a common thing that we do see over the phone with streaking or banding on the film is actually pertaining to the ink levels or just the amount of ink that is available to use inside that ink cartridge. So another reason why you can experience streaking or banding on the film has to do with the clog. We actually see this a lot with the 1400, 1430, not because the printers are prone to clog at all. It's because, again, those are the ones that we're seeing a lot in the startup shops that might not have as many jobs coming in. And an inkjet printer, I mean, from the $50 or $60 one that you can get from Walmart or whatever local department store, all the way up to our $30,000 direct-to-garment printers. Any inkjet printer is a happy printer when it is printing. So any amount of time, especially with varying environments, humidity, temperature, any amount of time that the printer is setting without ink flowing through can actually cause it to start clogging up on you. So the way to check that, you don't want to just start going and cleaning, because a lot of times, we hear customers like, oh yeah, I checked my manual, it said a cleaning might be needed. So I did like 5 of them and nothing's getting better, and you really have no idea of what your status is of your printer nozzles. So I'm going to go ahead and run a nozzle check here for you. I actually recommend, and I do this personally myself, before you print each day, actually come in and run a nozzle check. That will save you so much time. It will save you so much ink. If you know the status of your nozzles before you actually start printing your job, it's going to give you peace of mind when you actually do print, and if there is an issue, you can combat it before you've gone through X amount of films and X amount of ink. So the nozzle check, if you don't have your devices and printers open, and it might look a little bit different for other Windows users, but again, it's under the printing preferences. Now if you're on a Mac, that you would need to go to your Apple, to your system preferences, to your printers, and then you would need to click on options and supplies. You can view your ink levels there, and then you should be able to find your utilities or maintenance there as well. If you're not certain, again, that's where your manual does come in handy. So I printed off my nozzle check here, and as you can see on screen, there's an example of a good nozzle check and a bad nozzle check. The bad nozzle check can actually look more severe than this. Any nozzle check that you run should have 1 box per cartridge that you have. So on the 1430 and the 1400, that printer has 6 cartridges, so you see 6 boxes here. On a Epson 4900, that has 11 cartridges, so you would see 11 boxes. You want to make sure that you have 1 box per cartridge and that there are no horizontal gaps. Now I do want to do a side note on that. If you have the Epson Workforce 1100 or a printer that has more than 1 black, your nozzle check might look a little bit different. So for instance, the Workforce 1100 has 5 cartridges, 2 of them are black and the others are and then you got the other colors there. On that particular nozzle check, I believe it actually only prints out 3 boxes. So you do, again, want to reference your manual, or the on-screen prompt will show you what it should look like, just for your own reference. So on this one, I mean, my nozzle check came out great, but some of you might see, maybe this box and this box and this box are missing. This one, you can kind of see there should be a box there, but a lot of these inner lines are missing, etc. So you just go ahead and hit the clean button. Now I'm not going to hit the clean button because doing the cleaning does actually use ink from the printer. So the more cleanings that you do, the more you're going to actually be drawing ink out of the cartridges, and the more depleted your ink levels are going to be. So once you do a cleaning, then the next thing would be to actually run a nozzle check. So if I hit this clean button right now, it would tell me that there's a cleaning cycle. You'd have a status bar on your monitor, and then once it's done, you'll get another pop-up window. It will say either finish or print nozzle check. Now, depending on your operating system, that might be a little bit different, but the point is you want to go back and you want to actually print another nozzle check to see if that cleaning was successful. And you would need to repeat those steps until the cleaning was actually successful. You got a good nozzle check like shown at the top. Now, another thing to keep in mind for you Blackmax users is that you're not going to see color printed onto your film or your paper. You would actually see all black, and that's the way that it should look for you. Also, feel free to actually print this off onto paper. There's no reason why you should be using film to do this. Film's expensive. If you do have a scrap sheet of film, you could definitely do that. But I always use paper, and I always have a stack of scrap sheets of paper on hand near the printer that I can reuse, because the Nozzle Check is small. It only takes up a small area of the page, and you can reuse it 3 or 4 times before it's not going to work for another Nozzle Check. Now, as I've stated before, doing the head cleaning, it does use ink. You might be experiencing a clog bad enough that it takes 3 or 4 or maybe even up to 6 or more head cleanings. I've had to do that personally on my own printer, where I had to do up to six cleanings to try and get the ink to start flowing on the printer, because I had to get something out that day. I couldn't let the printer set overnight. Now, if you're in the lucky position where maybe your films aren't necessarily needed until the next day, or maybe later, you're just trying to get ahead of the ball here, then you can actually do a manual cleaning. Now, you can find instructions for this again on our help desk. A manual cleaning is essentially you would need Windex or Simple Green and a paper towel. It's pretty easy. So I'll go ahead and type in manual cleaning just to show you where this information is located. So there's a 4880 manually cleaning Epson printers is listed here. You can go ahead and click on that. This will show you for a 1400, 1430. And we actually have an entire section for troubleshooting our printer issues listed here on our help desk here. It's just under facts. So when you see this on your screen, the screen print library, you can click on your model of printer. These are the most popular models, or if you're using Blackmax ink and you think it has more to do with the ink and how it's printing, you can click on that. Manually cleaning the 4900 printer is going to be listed under the 4900, and the instructions are listed out in this PDF here. Now, these are steps that we actually do in-house. I've used them for refurbished printers that we're getting ready to send off to customers. I've used them for troubleshooting my own printers, because at my workstation I don't necessarily have to print every single day with the printer. So using the manual cleaning, it's a great thing if you're able to let your printer set overnight. Go ahead and utilize those documents to walk you through the process on your printer. And then again, if you can let them set overnight, that's best, but you can also do it in as little as 30 minutes to try and help break through a clog without having to run the cleaning. So a lot of times what I'll do is I'll do the manual cleaning, I'll let the printer set, and I'll actually come in and just do a couple of nozzle checks and see if that's enough to get the printer going. So that concludes it here. If you guys do have further questions, you can submit a help ticket right from our website. It's listed right here. If you'd like to reach me directly, I monitor all help tickets here. So give as much information, the printer that you're using, if you've done any nozzle checks, any head cleanings, if something different pops up, maybe something unexpected that we don't cover in this video, submit all the information here, and my response time is within an hour during business days. Thanks for watching Screen Printers. I hope you found this tutorial helpful. If you have further questions, please don't hesitate to give us a call to our customer success team. The number is 800-314-6390, and don't forget to subscribe to our YouTube channel for more awesome videos.